Chapter 1: Bustling Cities, Rising Architecture. The Nobel Prize of Architecture Pritzker Award is now focusing on Asia. It has shifted focus from Western-centered discourse to local architecture. If we exclude Japanese architects who have been eager to adopt modern styles and operate globally for a long time, Chinese architect Wang Xu's recent success is a good illustration. Wang has been transforming a traditional Chinese identity into a modern one by using tile and stone and sticking to Chinese construction principles. When the German Architectural Museum (DAM) introduced Wang to Europe, he was relatively unknown. DAM's 2007 group show Megacity Network Modern Korean Architecture also spotlighted Korea's unknown architecture and architects. Rediscovering Korean Architecture. Megacity Network Modern Korean Architecture was the DAM's first international group exhibition in December 2007. The German Architectural Center DAZ in Berlin, the Museum of Estonian Architecture, and the Association of Catalan Architects in Barcelona invited it throughout its European tour. The 16 participating architects, all operating in Korea and abroad, showcase Hanok's skyscrapers, churches, libraries, residential or commercial complexes, and the public structures in an eclectic mix of perspectives and interpretations of our cities. The 2005 Frankfurt Book Fair debate on Eastern and Western public spaces inspired the exhibition. DAM Director Peter Small first saw new Korean architecture there and proposed an exhibition. European visitors who had seen little of the country's architecture called the show new, dynamic, and full of possibilities. If Japanese architecture is the same old thing and Chinese architecture conveys the notions that still in a process of evolution, then Korean architecture is bold and innovative, said by University of Seoul Professor Kim Sung-hong, who organized the exhibition. Cho Min-suk's boutique Monaco in Seoul's Shokogu was a 2008 International High-Rise Prize finalist. Korean architects have won international awards and appeared in Domus, Mark, and Architectural Review. In March 2012, Domus featured Moon Hoon, and in July, Chu, a Young Architects Award recipient from New York, was featured in Mark and other international magazines. Architectural Record selected 11 international architects in 2004, including Cho Byung-soo. He won top Northwest and Pacific AIA awards. Phaidon Publications published 10 by 10 to 100 architects in 2005. Next edition featured Chu Min-suk's 2008 An Demoulemeister store design in Seoul Sinsa neighborhood. Architectural Review, Britain's leading architecture newspaper, evaluated by Jang Yun-gyu, Cho Byung-yu House, Susinwasang, which got highly commended at House 2013. US licensed architects Choi Do-nam, Ken Min Sung-jin, and Woo Kyu-sung's Architectural Association honors show Korea's promise. Korean architecture is finally being noticed after being eclipsed by China and Japan. Talking the global stage, fields struggled, uncontrolled, and westernized the country after the US push open. Due to demand and increased urbanization, modern styles overtook traditional once in post-war rehabilitation. Western architecture proved hard to adapt. With the 1945 Japanese surrender, architects raced to learn new methods and buildings. Western modernism was conceptualized without knowledge. Korean architecture only diversified in the late 1990s and early 2000s. New architects returned home after studying abroad once travel restrictions were lifted in 1987. Western postmodernism, late modernism, and constructionism were considered for Korean architecture. Young architects experimented in high-rise apartments. They didn't apply Western knowledge to Korea. Instead, they investigated Koreanness in their original work. Many are now renowned architects. The Korean urban environment has inspired many architects to create new motifs. City of Bang. During the 2004 Venice Architecture Biennial explored Korea's culture of rooms, singing, drinking, phone, and more. This time, Korean architecture adopted international styles. Globalization increased engagement with more international architects in Korea. The Ewha Women University Campus Complex (ECC) by Dominic Perrault and Lium. Samsung Museum of Art by Rim Koolhaas, Mario Botta, and Jean Nouvel are the results. Some architects have prioritized global architecture over originality and Koreanness. These newer architects such as Chu Min-suk's transient observations of Korean society and explorations of Mas or Moon-hoon powerfully idiosyncratic expressions of a borderline shamanist sensibility are poisoned on the same territory as their contemporaries around the world. As said, they are already drawing international publications, winning US and European awards, and exhibiting globally. Korean architecture entered New York City's MAM Citadel in 2011. Subekdang and Art Ballet, Jahaje were the works. The MoMA has selected world architecture and sought the architect's original drawings and models for exhibition and permanent collection since 1939. Korean architecture was honored for the first time following Namjoon Paik, Lee Gyu, and Lee Woo-fan. Barry Bergdahl, MoMA chef, architecture and design curator, witnessed Korean architecture in 2010. His 4-day itinerary includes Byeongsan Siwon, Confucian Academy in Andong, Baseoksa Temple in Yeongju, Gyeongmyo Shrine in Seoul, Gyeongbuk City in Sadong, and Gangnam office buildings. He valued traditional architectural grammar modified for Western-style buildings. Subaekdang and Jahaje yield it. Foreigners find modern Korean architecture unusual. Its ingenuity reinterprets modernity using traditional forms is intriguing. Korean architects overseas experiment. 1999 Stuttgart City Library Design Competition winner Yi Yun-yang Modern Pantheon launched in 2011. The gray interior showcased the volumes while the facade reads library in 4 languages including Korean. Yi won 2010 Hanover New Parliament of Lower Saxony Design Competition. Wang Do-jin. He integrated Korean architecture's spatial characteristics, overlapping, penetration, alternation with Sweden's old buildings by exposing the gallery's wooden beams. The display employed Swedish spruce, which resembles Korean pine to unite two seemingly dissimilar traditional civilizations. Pavilions have inspired architecture globally. Kyumin-suk's Air Forest 2008 was created for Denver's Dialogue City Global Art and Culture Fair. Denver's wind-powered forest impressed. The 2007 storefront for art and architecture gallery's 25th anniversary ring dome, made of hula hoops, was also praised for its eco-friendly design. The 2008 Yokohama Triennale and Milan International Furniture Fair showcased it. In 2013, young Korean architects learned from their global networks and actively express themselves at home and abroad. New York's Young Architects Award went to nameless Na-Yun Chang and Yu Sorei, and Prod's Yim Dong-woo. Since 2008, the Korean Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism's Young Architects Award, organized with the Korean Architects Institute, the Korean Institute of Architects, and the Korean Institute of Female Architects, has discovered and showcased new talent. This new generation of Korean architects demonstrates horizontal diversity and offers innovative urban ideas. Its boldness will show Korean architecture's diversity outside. The making of the Made in Korea world. In the 1960s, Korean architects began exporting. They grew rapidly in the Middle East over the next decade. The country was a top 2 construction power in the early 1980s. The market dried up in the mid-1980s when oil prices plummeted. Companies were excessively reliant on the Middle East. They diversified their markets to capitalize on catastrophe. By 1996, Korea had $10.8 billion in construction orders from other Asian countries due to its accessibility and demand. Their initiatives also varied. They also did high-value plant work for the past 20 years. The business has grown steadily because to a 1990s construction boom abroad, Americas and Europe are also building structures. Samsung and C&T built Dubai's Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest structure at 162 stories and 828 meters. Sangyong created Singapore's Marina Bay Sands, a wonder of 21st century architecture. The two massive monuments are renowned with introducing the world to Korean architecture. Korean firms aren't merely building. Several mega projects have built entire cities. GSENC is building a Ho Chi Minh City suburb, Niave. It's a Korean-style new metropolis on 13 million square meters to house 17,000 families and 68,000 people. After seeing Riverview Palace, GS 2011 luxury residence in Niave, city officials and citizens had great hopes for the city. Riverview Palace is among several luxury homes for international residents along the Siagon River. The 13 brand hotel offers a Korean-style decor, an outdoor swimming pool, golf driving range, sauna, tennis courts, guest house, and gymnasium. Engineering triumphs. Builders used a cutting-edge technology to drain water from the weak bedrock, allowing them to erect big structures there. Around $7 million in orders from abroad. Builders contributed to the national economy in 2013. Architectural firms outperform auto, semiconductor, and shipbuilding sectors. An architectural Korean wave suddenly seems plausible.
Chapter 2. The history of a Korean architecture tradition has sometimes been a source of identity and sometimes a burden in Korean architecture. Korean current architecture must be understood to discuss it. Asian traditional architecture includes Korean. Nonetheless, it has acquired its own set of characteristics. Its flexible reaction to topography and surrounding mountains, its organic layout of structures, its reiterations and metastasis of space that distinguish it from China and Japan architecture. Traditional architecture culture is gaining attention for its charm. It helps individuals seeking Koreanness in modern architecture and Korean contemporary architecture that rediscovers and reinterpret tradition. Stone pagodas and
Chapter 3. Korean Spirit Embodied in Traditional Architecture. The 10 structures that provide some of the finest representations of traditional architectural aesthetics in Korea are examined in this chapter. 6 of these, the Jonggyeon Panjon Hall at Haeinsa, the Sokgoram Bulguksa Compound, UNESCO has listed Yeongdong Village, Jeongmyo Shrine, Chakdokgung Palace, Hwasong Fortress, and Sanctuary as World Heritage Sites, demonstrating how highly regarded these structures are throughout the world. The Seo-1 are private Confucian academies. One of the final 4 is presently pursuing UNESCO World Heritage Site status. The other structures discussed in this chapter provide the finest illustrations of the distinctive architectural designs used during each era of Korean history. The Goryeo period's Moryang Sujeon Hall at Bosoksa Temple is a magnificent structure that exhibits the international style of the era, and Soswaewon is an outstanding example of landscape architecture that reflects the views and life nature by intellectuals of the era, as well as the political and sociological context of the early Joseon period from 1392 to 1910. Last but not least, Songnyeojang House is noteworthy as well, a well-crafted illustration of late Joseon era residential Hanok architecture. The Tripitaka Koreana, the most comprehensive compilation of Buddhist texts, was inscribed on 80,000 woodblocks between 1237 and 1248 and is kept at the Temple of Haeinsa on Mount Gaya. To house the woodblocks, which are also regarded as exceptional works of art, the Jonggyeon Panjon buildings, which originate from the 15th century, were built. They exhibit an astounding mastery of the invention and application of the conservation methods used to preserve these woodblocks because they are the oldest depository of the Tripitaka. Bulgukska situated on Mount Toham's foothills, Jinhondong, Gyeongju City, North Gyeongsang Province, South Korea. It serves as the headquarters of the Jogye Order, or Korean Buddhism, and is home to 6 South Korean national treasures, including the Dabotap and Sokgatap, stone pagodas, the Blue Cloud Bridge, and 2 Buddha sculptures made of gilt bronze. The sanctuary is listed by the South Korean government as Historic and Scenic Site No. 1 Bulguksa, and the Sokgoram Cave, located 4 kilometers to the east, were both included on the UNESCO World Heritage List in 1995. Yeongdong Folk Village, also known as Yeongdong Village of Gyeongju, is a typical Joseon Dynasty Yangban, or Korean aristocracy, hamlet. The hamlet is situated along the Hyeongsan River in Gangdong-myeon, Gyeongsangbuk-do, South Korea, 16 kilometers northeast of Gyeongju. North of the hamlet is where Mount Solchang is located. The South Korean government has listed the hamlet as important folklore material number 189. The size level of the preservation, abundance of cultural artifacts, traditionalism, and stunning natural environment all add to Yeongdong Village's significance. It is also a superb illustration of Neo-Confucian customs and Yangban, or Korean nobility lifestyle. In 2010, the South Korean government submitted Haho Traditional Village to UNESCO for listing as a World Heritage Site. The Confucian Royal Shrine at Jeongmyo, is the earliest and most genuine to have survived. The shrine, which honors the ancestors of Joseon dynasty from 1392 to 1910, has existed in its current shape since the 16th century and contains tablets on which members of the former royal family left their teachings. There are still rituals, ceremonies, combining music, song, and movement that date back to the 13th century. King Taejong commissioned the building of a new castle at a fortunate location at the start of the 15th century. The complex, which consists of a number of official and residential structures set in garden that was deftly tailored to the uneven topography of the 58-ha site, was built by Bureau of Palace Construction. The end product is a superb illustration of Far Eastern palace architecture and design that melds seamlessly with the surrounding environment. At the end of 18th century, Joseon King Jongjo relocated his father's tomb to Suwon and fortified the area with formidable defenses laid out in accordance with these guidelines of a well-known military architect who had incorporated the most recent advancements in the field from both the east and the west. The massive, nearly 6-kilometer long walls still stand today. They are pierced by 4 gates and included bastions, artillery turrets, and other structures. Evolution of Korean modernism. By the 2000s, architects focused less on Koreanness and more on an evolved type of Korean modernism. Modernism and Eastern thought are linked by Cho Byung-soo. His most famous works, the Camerata Music Studio, Concrete Box House, and Earth House, show his architectural talents. 3 start with a box-like frame. Camerata's basic box interior uses concrete, wood, and glass. Daylight creates a rich, powerful inner area. Cho's work has extreme shape restraint, coarse yet sophisticated mass, and an experience of nature's various qualities within. Like an artisan, he exploits the qualities of his resources. The concrete box house has a large cube cutout of a 30-centimeter thick roof without parapets. Long-term experimentation and study produced the structure. The thin sheet roof is irregularly supported by wood from old hanok buildings, and the interior is open to the sky, creating a backdrop for wind, sun, rain, snow, heat, and cold. Earth House neighbors concrete box house. It is an open roof box that naturally cuts into the ground. Cho used mud hut methods for this structure.
Chapter 4: Korean Modernism and its Legacies. Kim Jong-up worked at Le Corbusier office for 3.5 years. Kim returned to Korea and created work that integrated the formal features of the Swiss architect's latest work with a particularly Korean sentiment, yet with a modern twist. The striking curved Seo obstetrical clinic in exposed mass concrete is one of his most iconic creations. The building's design evokes the uterus and phallus, fitting for its purpose. During a time when Korean architecture was box-like, its organic contours were significant. The architectural notion of reproducing circles produced a beautiful usage of curves that connect the entire structure. Korea entered the 1970s with rapid economic expansion and a sudden industrialization. The Middle East building boom boosted construction technologies and corporate-funded firms. Concrete buildings have tile roofs, pillars, and other conventional elements. The construction drive peaked during economic growth. Architecture truly diversified throughout the 1980s. Postmodernism encouraged free expression. First-generation architects like Lee Hyu-tae, Kim Soo-gun, and Kim Jong-up died one by one in the late decade, speeding up the generational change. By the early 1990s, a new group, mostly architects in their 30s and 40s, asked very different questions than the preceding generation. After studying architecture abroad and working in the field, they returned home with stunning designs. They considered Koreanness Internally, and its architecture had a unique syntax. They introduced Korean out, Auterus architects, a guide to Seoul's best architecture. Gyeongbokgung Palace, Changdaegung Palace, Daesugung Palace, Jongmyo Shrine, Old Seoul National University Campus, Space Group Building, French Embassy in Korea, Kyungdong Presbyterian Church, Juldusan Martyr Shrine, Seonyudu Park, Urban Hive, Boutique Monaco, Bokchon Hanok Village, Wanki Museum, Zamzigil, Iwa Campus Complex, ECC.
Chapter 5: Pushing the Envelope, New Ideas and Experiments. Beyond the City Rooms. The 2004 Venice Architecture Biennale Korea Pavilion had many halls. The exhibition's clever analysis of Korea's room culture, singing rooms, steam rooms, video rooms, playrooms, and drinking rooms drew worldwide attention. The monotonous room-filled terrain lacked city layers. The show explored urbanization and high-rise apartment culture, where urban spaces were used as needed. The Biennale's top 5 shows included City of Bang. Korean architecture expanded into city areas in the 2000s. These unplanned, unsure towns were invaded by architects who created richer landscapes. Policies made towns more pedestrian-friendly. Reconnecting key cultural attractions to Seoul's Gyeongbokgung and Cheongdokgung palaces to their urban surroundings was planned. Plaza design, especially at Seoul's City Hall, at Gwanghwamun Gate, was another focus. These divided cities were redesigned by architects. A new housing culture between the beehives. Korean apartments are tall. Modern construction created high-density units for worker comfort. As population density increased in Korea in the 1960s and 1970s, apartments became the most common living setting. Athletes and journalists' towns were proposed for the 1986 Asian Games and 1988 Olympics. As construction firms built big, apartments became less diverse and more rational and easy. Few architects built homes. Diversity, quality of life, and style enlarged their residential niche. The Ilsan satellite cities' late 1990s and early 2000s residential buildings tested young foreign architects. Kim Song-hoi modernized Korean homes by joining 2 semicircular bolts. It evokes Gahu urban dong hanoks. Kim Hoon serendipity homes, bow diagonals, and 3-dimensionality create daily stress. When built, its unusual form and spaces stood out. Cho Byung-soo's L-shaped home uses traditional Korean architecture, while Kim Hyo-man's Lim Go-dang buildings uses skip floors, or it means offset half stories, to create a 3-dimensional interior naturally linked to the outside and interactive with various courtyards. Evolution of Korean modernism. By the 2000s, architects focused less on Koreanness and more on an evolved type of Korean modernism. Modernism and Eastern thought are linked by Cho Byung-soo. His most famous works, the Camerata Music Studio, Concrete Box House, and Earth House, show his architectural talents. 3 start with a box-like frame. Camerata's basic box interior uses concrete, wood, and glass. Daylight creates a rich, powerful inner area. Cho's work has extreme shape restraint, coarse yet sophisticated mass, and an experience of nature's various qualities within. Like an artisan, he exploits the qualities of his resources. The concrete box house has a large cube cutout of a 30-centimeter thick roof without parapets. Long-term experimentation and study produced the structure. The thin sheet roof is irregularly supported by wood from old hanok buildings, and the interior is open to the sky, creating a backdrop for wind, sun, rain, snow, heat, and cold. Earth House neighbors concrete box house. It is an open roof box that naturally cuts into the ground. Cho used mud hut methods for this structure. Landscape architecture in the transforming cityscape. A 1996 design challenge for Seoul's Myeongdong Cathedral's 100th anniversary proposed a striking new cityscape. The idea was to merge the building and its surroundings, making the city scenery part of the building and the building part of the urban landscape. In the late 1980s, Kim Jong-kyu created his landscape architecture style Britain's AA school, an inborn affinity for the land that he carried with him from Korea. Caused this. Kim's design launched Korean landscape architecture after the competition was cancelled. Architecture now emphasizes the organic relationship between buildings and cityscape and soil. The movement began when landscape design was just emerging worldwide. Reinterpretation of Hanok. Modern development in Korea increased population density. This development trend included Hanoks. In urban Hanok neighborhoods, smaller C-shaped and square-shaped models with central courtyards began to emerge, often on small parcels of larger plots where they butted up against their neighbors. Urban Hanok buildings failed to sell their productivity or technology. Korean design increasingly marginalized them. For a while, builders didn't have time or interest in Hanok design. In the early 21st century, things changed. Engineers tried new configurations. Ragung Hanok hotel designer Cho Jung-gu has tried to standardize and market the style's frame material. Mass production would lower material costs and increase the Hanok's popularity. As frame lengths decreased, the area between pillars shrank. Cho's effort to overcome high material and construction costs is significant. He has also experimented with Hanok modern building. Peter Bartholomew, a passion for Hanok. In 1968, Peace Corps volunteer Peter Bartholomew brought his love of Hanoks to Korea. I loved old buildings since primary school, he said. They were handcrafted and had a flair like reflected their area. After moving to Korea, he naturally became interested in Korean building. Like everywhere else, Korean architecture speaks of its religion, climate, people, economy, society, family, personal relationships, and art, he adds. Architecture reads everything.